So I read 19 books in April. I really don't even know how I did that, but we're just going to go through all the books that I had read and see which ones were good and which ones not so good. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be going over everything I read in April. I had kind of a up and down month where I had a lot of good reads and then I had a lot of reads that I just wasn't into, and I have realized one thing after April. I am not ever going to continue a long series whenever I don't even care about the story. And you'll know why whenever we get to that. But before we do, please make sure that you always like and subscribe. Always comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the video. Check out my links. Go to my Pango Books account, my Bookish Box ambassador link. I am currently in the middle of setting up an Amazon storefront, so all the books that are in my wrap-up you can easily go and find. That will be coming soon. My Patreon book club pick for the month is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. And come join me on Patreon. Let's have a good time. I'm about to start a new series. First video is coming up in May. And I hope that you stick around for that. All the links are below if you want to follow me on any socials as well. So let's get into it. I read 19 books in the month of April, and I want to say it started out good. I think it really started out good, and then something happened, and I don't know what that is. So the first book that I read was Flawless by Elsie Silver. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I wanted to know what the hype was about on the Elsie Silver books and the cowboy romances. Am I gonna be in my cowboy romance era? I don't think so. As much as I really loved the first book, I just knew that the vibes and stuff really weren't my thing. I'm not really into cowboy romances, but this one was a delight, to be honest with you. I really loved the banter. I loved the chemistry between them. I really loved that it wasn't an insta love type of situation where things grew naturally, and I got behind that. And just the world felt very vibrant and fleshed out. Like I knew these characters as if they were in my own hometown. So I definitely really loved it, but I don't think I'm going to continue on because I know they're standalones, and as much as I did love Flawless, I really don't think that the series as a whole is my cup of tea, which is fine, but 4 stars for Flawless. The next one that we have is a new book to me that I got as an ARC, and I ended up getting all 4 books that finish up the entire series as ARCs, and I'm still working my way through it. I am on the 4th and final book in May. But the first book is Queen of Roses by Briar Bolin. This is a fantasy romance. It is kind of a dark fantasy romance in a way. You have Fay, you have a war, and it is steeped in Arthurian legend. I'm telling you right now, if you love Arthurian lore and not really an Arthurian retelling, but all of those characters that come with like King Arthur and the Round Table and Guinevere and everything, and sprinkle it with Fae and make it kind of different but really good. I am devouring this series, you guys. I read the first 3 books in this series all in April, and they weren't even on my TBR. And I still completed my TBR. But I'm on the 4th and final book right now, and it is so good. The chemistry between the characters is good because it's kind of like a friends to lovers situation, and not friends, an enemies to lovers situation. But then things happen along the way in the series, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's so good, you guys. I really think that you would like it if you are a big Fae fantasy romance girly and you kind of like the King Arthur vibe. The next book that I read in April was Black Rose by Karina Halley. This is the second and final book in the Dracula duet, and I was so happy to finally get to read this. You guys, if you have been around for a while, you know I have been just going on and on about Blood Orange and the Dracula duet and how good it was and how much I love Karina Halley now. I loved everything about this. Is it the greatest writing style? No. Is it the greatest storytelling? No. But does it have that addictive world? Does it have the addictive characters? Does it have the addictive romance? This is a dark paranormal romance, but it is just so good. And the way that she ended off on Blood Orange and what she did as an author, I think was truly spectacular. You're starting off this book not, really from square one, but kind of from square one. You would understand if you read Blood Orange, but this continues, the story in that duet. And I highly suggest, after reading this, if you want to dive into this world, go read the first duet in this world, I guess, and it's called Black Sunshine and The Blood is Love, because you meet them in this book. And then also the standalone called Night Wolf, I think is what it's called. Definitely read it before you get in here, because all of those characters, even though it's not their story, they wind up in the story and they do play somewhat of a pivotal role to the ending of this. So I highly suggest reading that, even though they're their own stories, their own thing. It kind of like brings them all together in a way. I really loved that. So if you do like a dark paranormal romance, I did give this 4 stars. I was in love with it. I couldn't stop. And now I must read everything Karina Halley writes. And then the next book that I read was none other than book 2 in the Blood of a Fay series by Briar Bolin, which is called Court of Claws. Of course, this is continuing the story. We are getting deeper into the world, into the politics, into everything, and things that started out in book 1 as just like a little kernel has blown up into like a watermelon, okay? Like, things are not good. Our girl is trying to fix things. King Arthur is doing his thing. Guinevere is a character that does come in. I'm telling you guys, like, I don't even know the best way to describe this series without giving away any of the spoilers, and I definitely don't want to do that, because if you watch my channel, that means that you kind of like the same books that I like. So run and go read Queen of Roses, because if you don't like it after book 1, then you're not going to like the series. Of course, I gave this book 4 stars. I can't stop raving about it. You guys, it's so good. I'm thinking about these characters and this world whenever I'm at work, whenever I'm shopping. So just go try it out. You can tell that the writing and the world building starts out not really like amazing, but like halfway through book 1, you can tell that she gets her stride. And she is originally Finna Edgewood. I don't know what her other author name is, but she is so used to writing historical romances, and this is her pen name for her fantasy romance series. I'm telling you, you can tell that she has wrote a lot, but this is her first time really into fantasy romance, and you can tell whenever it starts out, but she hits her stride and it goes, and I just can't rave about it enough. The next book, sadly, is a DNF, and that is Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. I got 60% of the way through, maybe 70. I could not go on anymore. I did not care about Tasana. I did not care about the world. I did not care about anything. Book 1 was great. And then just book 2, I couldn't continue. I don't know why. I wanted to love this because I love Carissa Broadbent's other books. The Crowns of Nyaxia duet, Six Scorched Roses. I love those books, but I just could not love the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. So I ended up just DNFing the entire series. I'm so sad to say. But, you know, somebody else may love it because I know this is a very well-loved series. So don't just take everything I say, you know, to heart because you may end up loving it. I sadly just could not connect. The next one is Shadow of Night. I originally was DNFing this book. I turned around and ended up finishing it. I gave it a 2-star. The first book was great. I think that it built up a lot of the characters and the politics in the world and like the history aspect of it. And then book 2 happened and like the pacing slowed down. The way that the writing style was just way off. I wasn't in the story anymore. I couldn't stay in it. I found myself wondering, you know, what I was going to do that night or what did I need to get done around the house. And that is a sign that I'm just not vibing with the book. Nothing against the author. I think the book is very well fleshed out and she's very knowledgeable in the historical accuracy. I just personally couldn't stay in the book and I'm really sad about it because I know people love the All Souls trilogy and I know that she's coming out with a new book this year. I just couldn't do it, you guys. I know that I've had some of my friends say, but try book 3 because it's better than book 2. My heart's not in it and I feel like that would be a disservice to the author and to you guys because I wouldn't be giving you really a good review. I would already go in with a skewed mindset. The next book I read was a book that my husband picked out for me, and that is Finding Dorothy by Elizabeth Letts. This is a literary fiction. I'm telling you, like every once in a while, a literary fiction will hit, and I love it. But on here, you are following Frank L. Baum's wife. What is his wife's name? Maud. You're following Maud, and this is after Frank had died. This is whenever they are producing the Wizard of Oz movie that had Judy Garland as Dorothy, and you're kind of flipping between now and like a little bit in the past, and she keeps trying to like insert herself where she is, you know, trying to help them, you know, make the movie better or, you know, help Judy Garland and all of these things. And I loved this book. This book is not, you know, really something that you can read in one setting. I feel like you need to read a few chapters and kind of let it set with you because it's very good. It does talk about how old Hollywood used to be, how women were run down, they were taken advantage of, and Maud wanted to not only do a good service for her husband's work that was well loved by so many, but she also saw what was happening to Judy Garland and she wanted to kind of take her under her wing and protect her and make sure that she was being treated fairly. So of course, if you are a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz, I would say check this out because it just really brought a lot of things home to me, and I just loved it. Up next, we have Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. If you were to tell me 2 months ago that I was going to read a book about serial killers falling in love with each other and absolutely fall in love with them, I would have thought you were crazy. Absolutely. I gave this book 4 stars. It is so good. It has a lot of the dark elements in there, but it is very, like, humor-filled as well. Like, I was laughing and giggling at serial killers. This is wild. You're following our 2 serial killers, Butcher and Blackbird. They meet at some location. They know of each other. So anyway, they decide to meet up once a year and kind of play a game. They're going to hunt down the same person, the same serial killer, and whoever can get to him first wins. Now, they text each other throughout the year. They have their own jobs and their own lives. But then they meet up once a year, and their romance, as it keeps going, oh my gosh, I was giggling. I was loving everything about it. It's gory. I'm not gonna lie, it's gory. There are dark themes in here. Check trigger warnings. But at the same time, you guys, like, what did Brynn Weaver just do? She created a masterpiece, and I never would have picked this up if it wasn't for my book club pick, and I'm so happy I did. I'm still debating if I want to go on to the next book, which is Leather and Lark, but I think I might because I loved this book so much. So if you want a rom-com serial killer dark-themed book, that's the way I'm going to make it now. It's a rom-com with serial killers. Definitely go check out Butcher and Blackbird, but check trigger warnings first because there are some dark themes in here and it is quite gory. On to my next book club pick, which was the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I gave this book 2 stars. I love Grady Hendrix's writing in certain books. I didn't love it in here. There were funny moments. It's kind of comedic in reality because you have like these housewives, okay, that know nothing about murder or nothing about, being a detective or solving mysteries, and all of a sudden they think that they just know everything, and they're on this whole thing about this mysterious guy that is in their town. Anyway, I laughed at several moments, but there was a lot of times where I just could care less about the story, and I think it's a mixture of the writing and the characters themselves, because I wasn't feeling it, right? Like, I wasn't in it. I wasn't like, ooh, I wonder what this is going to be or what that's going to be. Like, it didn't feel real to me. It just felt very one-dimensional. There was no depth to this book, for me at least. So 2 stars, unfortunately, but I'm glad that I at least read it, so I know kind of a little different taste of Grady Hendrix's writing. This one just wasn't a hit for me. On to the next book. My husband picked this out as well, and it's because he didn't know that I already had a special edition of it from Fairy Loot, so I love my husband for that. But that is A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. You guys, I know there's a lot of mixed reviews out there. I know there are some out there that don't like this book and some that love it. I gave this book 4 stars, okay? I ate it up. All right, I loved every minute of it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I love Vikings and Viking lore and just being in the Viking world if it's done right. And I feel like this was done right. I know that I said in a previous video, I feel like Daniel L. Jensen really cornered herself in the market because not a lot of people like Norse mythology or Vikings in general. So there's only going to be so many people that are going to like absolutely eat this up. And the people that ended up not liking it, I don't think it was necessarily the story itself. I think it was a lot of things like the Viking aspect of it, or they just didn't understand the story in certain aspects. But I ate this up. I love Freya and Bjorn's relationship and how he has to protect her and, just the way that things evolved. I can't wait for book 2 to come out because I need to know what happens. The way that this ended had me on edge. And I'm in my Viking era right now. Like, I read this whenever I was watching The Last Kingdom with my husband. Now we're watching Vikings because we already finished up The Last Kingdom. Like, I'm all about Vikings right now. So if anybody has any good Viking fantasy romances, leave them in the comments below. I need more. The next book is To Kill a Shadow by Catherine Quinn. I gave this book 2 stars. You see where I'm going up and down here in the month? This is a very beautiful book, and I can see why a lot of people love this book. It wasn't for me. I didn't understand the story fully. I didn't understand why we were going into the shadow. I didn't understand why a lot of things were happening, and the writing style itself just isn't a writing style that I flow with. I couldn't stay in the story. I felt like it was a little more like on a literary fiction level rather than a fantasy romance level, and I might be the only crazy person out there that feels this way, and that's okay. I just, I'd rather somebody end up getting this book who loves it, where I am just meh about it. I don't want to continue on. It has nothing to do with the author. It's just not a story I vibed with, and I know that the next book comes out and the cover is gorgeous. I've seen it in my Entangled Insiders group. It's just not for me. Next book is Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. Can someone tell me what in the heck I read? Because I'm somewhat angry about it, because I was all in on this story. I was like, what is happening? Why did they lose their memory? Why are these things happening to them? I was invested in this story, and like how it kept happening, and how, all of these things were going. And then you get to the end, and that was the reason. That was the reason why they were losing their memory, and the way that they could get their memory back. If you have read this, you may know what I mean. Like, it was good until the very end. Whenever it was the revelation of how they could get their memories back and why they're losing their memory, I was like, no. Like, I gave this book 2 stars. If I could, I'd give it a 1 star, but I can't lie to you guys, or at least lie to myself, that I didn't enjoy 80% of this book because I ate it up. So that just solidified that I will never read another Colleen Hoover book. This was my one and only time. Not ever doing it. Loved the writing, loved the story, loved everything about it, and then the ending happened, and that did it for me. I was mad. So, 2 stars. We've made it to my first 5-star read of April. We've made it. Emmy and the Tutor King by Natalie Murray. What is this book? It was gorgeous, amazing. I loved everything about it. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I love the tutors so much. But this book, I loved this book so much that I went to my husband immediately and was like, I need the next books. And he let me buy book 2 and 3, and then found out that Natalie Murray went through and made an omnibus of all 3 books, but she made it more for like an adult audience. So she really didn't change the story, but she changed the spice level and added in extremely spicy scenes instead of fade to black. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I love my spice, but this book, even though it's like fade to black, I enjoyed that. I loved every minute of it. I don't know why I put this book off for so long. Maybe because I thought that it was a middle grade book because of how it looks. But you guys, 5 stars. 5 stars. I'm in love with it. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm not going to lie. So, Emmy and the Tutor King. All I'm going to tell you is, at the very start, you get kind of like a prologue, an introduction, and they talk about the Tudor reign, and they talk about, it was Henry VIII, and then Bloody Mary, and then, his daughter Elizabeth I, who then ended up never marrying, never having children. So then, whenever she died in like 1603, it went to James Stewart of Scotland, who became, King James I of England. Now, they then say, what if Queen Elizabeth ended up marrying Robert Dudley and having children with him? And what if her oldest son was this guy named Nicholas, King Nick? And it's 1580. And then you have our girl, Emmy. And she is from like our time frame, and she is a 17-year-old, or maybe she's 18, but she's about to graduate high school. And she ends up getting a ring from her neighbor whenever they were doing like a yard sale. She put it on and fell asleep, and she woke up in 1580 England, and that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say, you guys. If you love fantasy romances where you are in a medieval time setting or a Renaissance setting, if you like the whole royalty and court politics and different things, and if you like the Tudor time period, or at least the monarchs of those times, pick this up. It is so good. The writing is amazing. It flows well. I was laughing. I was upset. I was mad. I was all these emotions going through it. 5 stars. I can't rave about it enough. I cannot wait to get to the next books. If I can get through my TBR in May, I'm immediately going into book 2. Just immediately. And then I want to read book 3. And then I want to go back and read the omnibus and see how different the spice is. So, 5 stars. Alright, I'm going to have to speed this up. My camera is like, I guess, overheating. I don't know what's going on with it. But the next book was Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. Here we go. Again, we had a high, a 5-star, and then we get to a 2-star. I loved reading the arc of Savor It that comes out this month, actually. Loved that. Loved that book. Loved everything about it. This one just didn't grip me the way that Savor It did, because this is about comedians, or at least she's a comedian. Is he a comedian too? I know that they're like best friends, and like for publicity, PR, they're gonna start like fake dating. I just wasn't vibing with it, you guys. I wasn't vibing with them or the romance. I don't know what it was, but it just didn't grip me like Savor It did. So I am happy I read it because I got it off my physical TBR, but I don't think I'm going to keep the copy. I am going to read more by Tara DeWitt. I love her writing, and I really loved the romance in Savor It. This one just didn't hit the same way, but that's not going to deter me from continuing to read by her. But, you know, 2 stars. It wasn't there for me. Then I went on to Everand because I wanted to read a book, but I wanted to listen to it on audio. And I found it where it was the duet. It's the Pale Court duet, which the first book is King of Flesh and Bone. The second one is Queen of Rotten Pain. What do I say about this? It's terrible. Yuck. What is the story? What's the premise of this? I don't understand a lot of things that are going on, but I gave this whole duet 2 stars. I listened to the whole thing, and it's like she goes into the underworld, and she's like with the god, and basically is like forced to have sex with him. Like, that's all it is in the first book. He's forcing her to have sex, forcing her to get pregnant, forcing all of these things. Like, there's a lot of tropes in here that I did not like. So check trigger warnings because it is extremely dark. But yeah, that's all that I can say. 2 stars. I'm not even happy I read it. The next one, you guys. Why did I do this to myself? Book 9 in the Zodiac Academy series. It's called Restless Stars, I think. It just recently came out. I picked it up on audio because it's like a 38-hour audiobook or something like that. Like, that is stupid. It's like almost 1,200 pages. And they did say it is the last book in the series. I could not. I DNF'd this. I got not even halfway through. I could not anymore. I don't care what happened to the characters anymore. I don't care about the story. I don't care about anything anymore because I think that I was over it whenever I didn't like book 8, like the 1,200 page chunker that it was. But I was like, I'm already invested. I gotta read it if it's gonna be the last book. And so much time has passed that I just could care less. If you like it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you like the Zodiac Academy series because I know that it is a loved series. It was so good for me up until, I think, book 6, and then things just kind of started going downhill. I felt like the story was dragged out way too long. I felt like there is so many things that need to be cut, and by the time we get to this, we have so many POVs that we are following that you can't even stay in the story. You can't even stay in the actual story of what the Vega twins are trying to do. So, again, I DNF'd it. I don't ever want to read by these authors ever again. All right, the second to last book is the third book in the Blood of a Fay series by Briar Bolin, which is called Empress of Fay. I gave this one 4 stars as well. Again, you guys, I've already been raving about it, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about it. But again, like I said, if you like the Arthurian legend and fantasy romances with Fae, pick this book up or this series. There's only 4 books. It is completed and it's wonderful. I think it even might be on Kindle Unlimited. Don't quote me on that, but I think it might be. Definitely go check it out. That's all I can say. And then the last book before my camera dies is my reread of Losers Part 2. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on here because I've talked about Losers before by Harley LaRue. Gave it 5 stars again. It's a why choose romance between 4 guys who are losers and the girl who was like the most popular in high school. Check trigger warnings. It is kinky. It is dark. It's erotic. It's amazing. If you like why choose books and stuff, I highly suggest checking it out, but start with The Dare. But again, I love these guys so much. I wanted to do my reread because I just love them so much. Can they be real? That's all I want. I just want them as my friends. Alright, you guys, those are all 19 books that I read. Leave me a comment below. Have you read any of these books? Do you agree with anything that I had mentioned? I love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. Again, don't forget to head on over to my Bookish Box Ambassador link to get some t-shirts, bookish merch, and so much more. Look out for my Amazon storefront coming soon. And then also, make sure that you join Patreon. You don't want to miss out on our book of the month, getting all of the new exclusive content that's going to be over there. And then, of course, you can just DM me on my Instagram as well. So I hope you all have a great day. Bye!